today.
Perfect. Thanks, Bobby. Thanks, Amber, and everyone for being here. Happy Monday. Here we are again, kicking this off. So we have people joining as we speak. So if you are new to this call, if you want to just introduce yourself, your name, and what organization you're with, we would love to welcome you and see who's on the call. But if you've never joined before, you need a refresher. This is our lovely Monday call hosted by Maddie's Fund. And we continue conversations here, but also at the Maddie's Pet Forum. And we have featured speakers. So definitely feel free. We will have time. We have a wonderful speaker today who I'm excited to introduce in a little bit. But definitely put your questions in the chat and we'll have a little bit of time to go through those. But just to start us off, I reflecting on last week, such a great call, and Mary, her incredible motivation that she starts with every Monday. Really got me thinking through the week of, she talked a lot about supporting each other, even if you're meeting someone new in the industry, and the importance of leaning on each other. So I wanted to ask a question. You might have to think about it a little bit, but I'm putting it in the chat. So the question of the day is, what is one thing someone at work has done that has encouraged or helped you lately? So while you think about it, I had one, just a small gesture, someone I haven't talked to in the industry in a really long time, reached out and texted and just said they were thinking about me, and it just meant everything in the world. So it's small little text gesture. But if anyone has anything, I don't know if Bobby, you can think of anything that's happened in the last week or so that's encouraged you, or Amber, would love to hear it. Yeah. So go ahead and put that in the chat.
I'll go for one as other folks are preparing theirs in the chat. Yeah, so I have tried to create some level of balance by having a group of people that I always rely on, that I meet with every single Friday. And my life just got so busy that I just stopped going to these meetings. And then a couple of weeks ago, I just decided I have to make time for this. And I saw people that I cared about, and just giving myself a little bit of grace to make some time to connect with people made all the difference. And it took me into my next week, and I had the best week ever. So that's my win. And for those folks that are on this call that I get to meet with, I just want to thank all of you.
I love that. Thanks, Bobby. All right, we've got Ashley there, just to be there in the silence. Yes.
I've got one.
Yes, would love to hear, Brandy.
So I'm Brandy with Cabot Animal Support Services in Cabot, Arkansas. I was working on a grant, gosh, it's been a few months ago, and it was my first federal grant, and I thought I was going to die. I cried so much. And my wonderful new staff member, Catherine, I think she's on the call. When I finally got it done, she brought me a little thank you card, just saying thank you so much for doing what you do here, and a cute little Halloween, because I love Halloween, little Halloween decoration. But it was so encouraging to know that somebody else noticed something that I was really struggling with, and put it out there, and just gave me a little words of encouragement and tried to assist me with that. So I appreciate you, Catherine.
I love that. That's so nice. And you got that done. Good for you, Brandy. I saw tacos as a gift. Always good. Always makes everything better. A thank you card and gift card. This is awesome. I love this. Vicki, did you want to talk about yours? It just happened this morning. If you can unmute, not sure if you're here.
Happy to. A coworker walked into my office with a Betty White little golden book for me, which I happen to like both Betty White and little golden books. And she knew I had a rough week last week and wanted me to have a good start to this week. Very kind.
I love that. Thanks so much. Chris, I see your hands raised. Did you have one?
Actually, I just wanted to introduce myself. I am through Faithful Pet Rescue Mission. We're a nonprofit in Venice, Florida, 100% donation based and 100% volunteer. And last week I took a week of PTO from work and drove 23 rescues up to Alexandria, Virginia, to our rescue partner up there. And when I got back from there, I drove another adoption up to the North Florida Panhandle So last week, all in total, we had 5 adoptions. And I just wanted to say that, listening to these conversations, it's really inspiring. And I understand about the grant writing because I'm about to try to do one for the Rachel Ray. And I was supposed to have an interview or a conversation with one of their representatives for the Florida area this morning, and she had to cancel because the son was sick. But I'm like really nervous about trying to write this. So when I mess anything up and kind of take the chance of getting a grant, that could mean so much to us, since we're just struggling barely, to make it. It's
Like,
kind of overwhelming.
Chris, the one thing I'll just mention about what you said is you should actually be so excited that you're so nervous, because that just means you care so much about the work. And I think as long as you bring that passion for what you do to those conversations, a lot of folks that are now in this grant writing space are really there to support and through stewardship of helping you sort of figure out what your why is as well. So congratulations on even having that call. And if you ever need any inspiration, you can always come hang out with us.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. And definitely speaking about grants, I didn't want to forget that if you're attending these calls, both live and on demand, you have a chance every month. Maddie's is kindly giving up to $10,000 in grant money. So you just want to look at, yes, thanks, Irene, in the chat. You just fill out that form, make sure that you're attending or watching it on demand, and you have a chance to get your organization to win a monthly grant. So thanks, Maddie's fun. And thanks everyone for opening up our Monday with some really nice, I'm getting lots of ideas of what I can do for other people. So thank you. But with that, I am going to open it up for national updates. If any national orgs or any local organization has an announcement they would like to give, feel free to unmute and start now.
Hey everybody, I'm Emily from the Correct Shelter Medicine Program at UC Davis. I wanted to share that we are currently accepting proposals for our latest grant cycle, SNP-Timber. This grant cycle will be focused on increasing capacity for spay and neuter services for animal shelters in California. And I wanted to let you know that partnerships are encouraged. So if you're a vet clinic or a spay and neuter organization that does not have a brick and mortar intake facility, you can partner with animal shelters on proposals. We are accepting proposals through October 15th. And I'm going to post a link in the chat where you can get more information. Thank you.
Hey everybody, I'm Nancy Peterson. I'm the former Community Cats Program Manager for the Humane Society of the United States, and I retired in 2015, and I live in a rural mountain town in Colorado where I foster kittens for my local shelter. And I also serve on the boards of Neighborhood Cats and the National Kitten Coalition and Mama Paka in Zanzibar, Tanzania. I wanted to tell you all about the National Kitten Coalition's 3rd annual veterinary conference that will take place virtually on October the 2nd, and I will put a link in the chat. It's specifically kitten oriented. There'll be some great presentations about FIP, including Dr. Colleran and Dr. Niels Peterson, no relative of mine, but he is the man who discovered the cure for FIP. So I'll put the link in the chat, and I hope you'll come in and attend.
Thanks, Nancy. Bob, did you have an update?
Yeah, I just 2 weeks ago I mentioned about the rescue here in Williamsburg. We pulled 33 Invigro beagles for a foster-based Homes for Hounds rescue here. All 33 have been placed. If you know anything about that Invigro place, we were breeding 5,000. They had 5,000 beagles, breeding 500 puppies a month, selling them for research around the world. They weren't doing too good a job, and PETA and a bunch of other folks, through legislation and through investigation, basically shut them down. We had 5,000 beagles pour into the infrastructure and the network. The small rescue that we have here took 33. They were identified with ear tattoos. So the only way you could identify them was through the markings on their ear, we took that opportunity to select 13 of them and name them after either legislators or investigators. And we set up a page on Facebook called "Thank You for Saving the Beagles." And we've contacted state senators, federal senators, the governor, who all have a beagle now named after them. They've gone through the fostering process. They've all been adopted. And we are now sending professional photos of their namesakes to these people who are going to be getting them as gifts here in the next couple of weeks. So it's gotten a lot of attention and a lot of support. So in fact, Senator Tim Kaine met his namesake and their adopter about a week and a half ago here in Virginia. So I encourage you to go to Thank You for Saving the Beagles. I'll post a link on the chat, but it's been a very successful program. And in less than a month, 33 beagles were placed in, in a very small.
That is so awesome, Bob. Bob, I'm also going to put a link to all of the other partners that participated in helping those 4,000 beagles. So yeah, shout out to HSUS for leading that. So thanks so much for that update, Bob.
You're welcome.
All right. It looks like we have a couple more updates. I think we've got about a minute left for those. So Michelle and Hope. Michelle, do you want to start? Do you have an update? All right. Anyone else with an update before we move on?
Hey, Claire, it's Lindsay with the Humane Society of the United States. I mentioned last week that we were opening applications for our Shelter Ally Project mentorship grants, and those are now available. I'm going to put the link in the chat with descriptions of the mentorships on pet inclusive housing, community cats, and then capacity building.
Perfect. Thank you, Lindsay. All right. Anyone else? Okay, thanks. It looks like we do have some updates that are going in the chat. So if you want to take a look at those. And then I am so excited to get to our speaker today. We have a great topic for you all. And what is really exciting about this is I think it's going to be really relevant regardless of the resources that you have at your shelter or your foster-based organization. But I know shelters are very full. We are hearing that constantly. And so really excited to really focus on intake conversations. And we're going to hear from Luis Quintanilla. He is from Humane Society of Harlingen in Texas, South Texas. He's the executive director there. So we're going to hear a great presentation about how he's transformed his shelter. And feel free again when he's talking to put questions in the chat, and we will get to as many of them as we can after the session. So thanks, Luis, and I'm going to turn it over to you. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thank you so much, Claire. As Claire mentioned, yes, I'm the executive director for the Humane Society of Harlingen. We are in the southernmost county of Texas. It's Cameron County. And yeah, the situation is difficult, but our team and our community has really managed to make some really good things happen. So why don't I just jump into the presentation? Claire, please scream at me if I'm doing this wrong. I want to share my screen here.
Yeah, you're great.
I'm hoping that.
Yep, we can see that. Perfect.
Okay, great. All right. Oh, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
There we go.
Perfect.
Right.
That's great.
So this is just sort of, as many of you know, wrangling a shelter team is sort of like wrangling cats. So this is the one good picture we had. And this is one of our most recent adoption events. It's hard to get everybody together because usually everybody's doing 10 different things. So yeah, it was a great event. We got a lot of awareness out there, and yeah, the team is just great. That's the team that does everything right there. So I wanted to just jump right into some of the numbers. The Humane Society of Harlingen has been no-kill above 90% since March of 2020. And the year that 2020 obviously was a big mess for everybody. And we managed to turn all of that chaos into something really positive. And intake, has been, just as high as it has been in other years, at least that year. It didn't drop off that much in 2020. It's dropped off a little bit this year because of diversion, which I'd love to touch on more. I will. But I just love seeing this graphic, right? This mountain that we've climbed it means so much to us. The ending save rate for 2019 was 49%, and 2020 it was 92%. So it was a massive leap from one year to another, and that's because our staff was cut in half, and everything else was thrown out the window too, right? It was like a really terrible time, but we managed to turn that into something really positive, and we used that extra time that we had, at least in the first few months of 2020, or first few months of COVID, when things were slowing down. The city was, not operating at full strength, so animal control was not bringing us as much, on a daily basis. We really reworked all of our programs, and just to get a better understanding of our structure, we're a private nonprofit. The Humane Society of Harlingen is a private nonprofit with a contract to provide sheltering services for the city of Harlingen. So we work out of a city building on city property, but we don't have control over the animal control officers. We are just the shelter people. And so that's how it works. So these are the save rates, the most current save rates. So as you can see, 2019 was pretty rough. It was 49%, 2020, 92, 93 in 2021. And so far, year to date, it's 93. And our most recent month that we have, of course, was August. September's not done yet, and August was 95.6%, which for one of the nastiest months of the year, that's an incredible lift for our team and our community, and very proud of that work. And these are one of my favorite photos here. This is something I want to talk about. When I first came in, the team was already doing really well. It's not as though I walked in and transformed everything. That team was already really solid. The save rate was already about 85%, but we were still getting animals dropped off outside of our door 7 days a week, 24/7, no questions asked. And so I figured, okay, well, our staff is really good at adopting out animals. They're really good at working with rescue partners, but that's never going to mean anything unless we figure out how to have a conversation with our community about, managed intake. We can't just accept everything 24/7. If we don't operate with the philosophy that animals are disposable, then why should we behave that way? It doesn't make any sense. So that's when I first told my team, I said, hey, I know you guys are working really hard, but we're going to do this now. We're going to not accept animals 24/7. And, of course, I had a couple of staff members who were really concerned, thinking that we're going to get run out of town with pitchforks and all that stuff. And that was definitely a concern of mine too, that some people were going to take it, in a not so positive manner. But I figured, okay, every conversation that we have, even if it's at least at first a hostile one, is an opportunity to make that connection and tell the people in our community why it is that we want to do what we want to do. If not, how can we ever expect them to buy in if we don't at least start having those conversations? So it was a way of putting a speed bump to intake at first. It's like, okay, wait, before you just leave this cat here, let's just talk about what the needs are at our shelter, what we're facing, and how you could help a lot more than you might think you can. So these kennels right here were the drop-off kennels. And every single morning, our staff would find dozens and dozens of dogs mixed with puppies, mixed with elderly, mixed with green nasal discharge. I mean, it was a nightmare. For any of you who work in the shelter environment, have ever been around that, it's a disaster, right? So that's what we wanted to get rid of. And one of the other, I guess the side photo here is I was dismantling. That's for cats. It was for cats and dogs. So it was just nasty, right? Cats would get dropped off in kennels with dogs, puppies with dogs. It was just nasty, right? And every single day we'd have a couple of staff members who were just euthanizing almost all day. And, there was no end in sight. It didn't matter how many adoptions we were doing. We were getting far more animals coming in through our door every day. So we literally just took a sledgehammer to this and knocked them off the wall. That was really satisfying to do that day. And so I just put here some bullet points that I want to make sure not to forget. It's all about engaging with the community. And in our community, there are quite a few Spanish speakers. And we never really had engagement on a large or consistent scale with our Spanish-speaking community. We did the one-off, broadcasts or interviews in Spanish at the local affiliate, but it was never anything consistent. Our adoption contracts were not in Spanish. Our foster paperwork, the foster program didn't even really exist, so the paperwork was definitely not in Spanish. Our signage throughout the shelter. Things like that. It just wasn't really communicating to a large segment of the population. So we wanted to make sure that changed immediately. So that has been a huge help for us, really getting the word out, because that's we want to be reflective of our own community. And one thing that I put in here, it may seem a little bit aggressive, but I just can't stand the word educate. I know that it's not meant all the time in a negative way, but I really can't stand it. I think it's really judgmental. I think it's downright gross sometimes to just say, oh, well, we need to educate people. Oh, really? Wow, you must be such an expert, right? I don't like that. You know, so I just think the main thing that we do at the shelter is try to provide services. Because for years, at least at my shelter and my previous shelter, you had leadership at the board level and at the director level, just basically shouting spay neuter at people, saying, oh, you need to be more responsible. You need to spay neuter your pets, you need to spay neuter your pets. I said, okay, well, that might be true, right? We all agree that spay neuter is a really good thing. But if there are no clinics to access, or if your community is so impoverished that they can't afford to put food on the table, but you want them to go get a surgery for all of the animals that show up at their doorstep every day. And by the way, the overpopulation problem with stray animals is in the hundreds of thousands here every year. I mean, what are you doing? You're not really providing a solution by just saying, oh, you know, you should do this. It's like screaming at a developing country to get better infrastructure. Oh, wow, great idea. Had no idea. So smart. It's just gross. So we decided to figure out a way to not do that anymore. How do we not be gross? How do we help people? We love our community. We know that our community loves animals because we're from our community. So let's make programs that reflect that. So one of the big things that we've talked about, right? There are much better speakers for barrier-free adoptions than I am, but that was number one, right? Make sure that your adoptions are barrier-free. Let's get rid of those speed bumps to life saving. We put out a call to our community when the first 2-week COVID shutdown happened in 2020, and our foster family base went from about 10 families to over 150 in 48 hours. We cleared out our shelter multiple times, and we're even able to pull in from neighboring shelters animals that were going to be euthanized if they didn't find an outcome. So that was really a meaningful, galvanizing moment for us. We all had this sort of faith, I guess, that people are overwhelmingly good and they want to do the right thing. And if you just ask for help and you tell your story, you're going to get people answering the call. So that's sort of how we operate, and that's the way we've been sustainable this entire time. So, adoptions barrier-free. Let's get animals out through foster, work with rescue partners locally and statewide and beyond. But really, that's only the first step. The next step is keeping animals out in the first place, right? And so, kind of touching back on I don't like the word education, is that, well, if you want to remove barriers to pet ownership, it's not just about saying, okay, well, we're not going to get a DNA sample for you to take home this dog. It's also, well, can we provide low-cost vaccines? Can we provide low-cost microchips? Can we provide spay-neuter to the community by flying in relief vets or organizations to come and do that work? And that was really the next step. And of course, intake diversion. And all of those things that I just mentioned are a part of our diversion process. So right there, you see one of the bullet points. It's sort of an escalation of services that it's kind of a term that we use within the shelter. And we only give what we have to in order to keep that animal out of the shelter. So for instance, if I have a person come in that found a litter of puppies roaming around the post office, picks them up, wants to do the right thing, thinks that the right thing is just to drop them off, we have a conversation with that person, say, hey, look, we are overwhelmed. I can take you to the puppy room right now. I can take you to the kennels and show you just how full we are. We know that you want to do the right thing. That's why you bothered to pick those puppies up in the first place. Is there any way you could care for them? I'm not an expert. I didn't go to school to bottle feed puppies, but I guarantee you that if I can do it, you can do it. Can we provide you the bottles? Can we provide you the formula? And that's just that's how you start the process. And many times what we find is, oh no, I didn't realize that you guys were full. I had no idea. I assumed that it was the best thing for them to just come to a shelter. And sometimes when we offer those people those resources at first, they just deny them altogether. They'll say, no, it's fine. Don't worry. I see you guys are overwhelmed. Don't worry about it. I'll go get the formula and the bottles myself. What do I need? Can you give me a list of things that I would need? And, so sometimes it's as simple as that. Other times people have different, needs. So we'll give them a crate, we'll give them warming blankets, we'll give them the food, we'll give them whatever it is, right? We'll put them into our foster system so that we can vaccinate them and give them a full intake, but they'll go immediately back out to their finder. And it's really that, trying to figure out from a menu of items what we can offer to people to keep that animal out that they found wandering the street, or to keep families together who have possibly fallen on some really hard times. How can we keep that family together? Because no matter what, it's going to be, if you want to just look at the bottom line, it's going to be less expensive to just keep that animal there than it would be for us to carry that. And that's what we do. That's really the main crux of what we do. And this year so far, it's not over. So I'm really scared about saying this, but so far our intake is down almost 450 animals relative to the same time last year, from January to today. And it's not as though there are fewer strays out there. It's just that our community is a lot more plugged in and a lot more activated in what we do. So a lot of that stuff, we have that belief that most people want to do good. They want to help. They want to do the right thing. Of course, there are exceptions, but they're few and far between. And if they weren't few and far between, we wouldn't have been so successful for so long. And I always tell my staff, hey, look, welcome those difficult conversations. You're going to get challenged. You're going to get, you're going to get some hostile conversations every now and then. Obviously, if it rises to the level of abuse, I tell my staff, don't engage, walk away right now. It's not worth it. But a lot of times people are willing to listen, and it's a way of changing people's minds. I've been in animal welfare for only 4 years now. And 4 years ago, I had no idea what heartworms were. I wasn't a monster. I just had no idea what that was. The people coming through our doors aren't monsters either. They just have no idea what we're talking about. So that's just our job to make sure that they do. And so for the most part, we have a really successful rate for diversion. We're trying to figure out a way to track it more. It's difficult to track how many animals you keep out if they're not all entering your system. So if anybody has any ideas, please let me know. I'm always trying to figure out a way to improve them. I have no idea how to organize that stuff. I mean, anybody who runs a rescue or a shelter, collecting as much data as you'd like to collect is a lot more difficult than, like when you're executing it, right? So, I put down there for especially leadership staff, but it can be anybody at a shelter, is to really take ownership of your role and steward your role in a really proactive way. Every single day is an opportunity to find something new. When COVID happened, the world was falling apart, right? And meanwhile, I'm pacing around the shelter just like a maniac, and my staff is wondering, oh my God, his eyes are on, what is he doing? So what can we do, right? What can we do? How do we use this moment? Because animal control is not coming in. When has that ever happened? When will that ever happen again? What can we do? What can we do? We have to use every minute now, because we'll never get this again. So we put in our policy of only intake by appointment. When it comes to public drop-offs, we still have to say yes to everything that comes in from animal control. And we revamped our foster program. We tore up our old contracts for adoption. We redid them. We made everything bilingual. We did all that stuff, right? And so, and my city is structured in a way where animal control and the shelter is under the umbrella of public health. And I figured, well, it's COVID, so they're going to be really busy. So I'm going to do whatever I want without them micromanaging me. And I'm going to get their constituents and their voters used to this level of service, so that by the time this pandemic is over, they're going to have a really hard time telling me no. And sure enough, 2.5 years later, our city has passed really progressive ordinances, and they're going to increase our funding by at least $120,000 more or less annually. Everybody loves a photo op with a puppy, even if they don't genuinely love that puppy. So I challenge directors out there to be really, really positive and aggressive. There's no reason not to, because lives are on the line. So just leverage that love for animals that you have into something really constructive and permanent, right? It was a kind of a sort of calculated risk. The city could have very well rolled back a lot of the things that we were trying to do, and been very difficult, but engaging every step of the way with that positive face and transparency, you get the community fighting for you. Said if there's ever any pushback, they could do the fighting for us, and we don't have to worry about that. So please do that. Don't be afraid of that. My background is in law. I graduated from law school in 2014. So I'm not afraid of those difficult conversations. My staff is probably rolling their eyes if they're listening. I totally enjoy conflict if it's a constructive bit of conflict. So having those difficult conversations with mayors or commissioners is something that I think we should all, relish. We should all love that. And again, there's a line in there that sounds a little crazy, but if you know the picture of Texas, if you know Texas, it's just like California, right? We're the top 2 states for shelter euthanasia, right? And my region is probably at the top of that list. And it's difficult. We have over 1.5 million people living in this region. We have hundreds of thousands of pets roaming the streets. We have maybe 25 vets in the whole area. The poverty level is insanely high. It's the Rio Grande Valley is comprised of 4 of the poorest counties in the state of Texas. So the lack of resources that we have and the challenges that we're facing are just, there are a few places in the country that can compare. There are, for sure, but on this scale, it's difficult. So when I'm confronted with, I guess municipal leaders or I guess even other partner organizations, sometimes I always want to make them say it. If they're kind of pushing back on, oh, well, I think you should accept everything. We're getting a lot of calls at City Hall that you should just accept everything. Like, it's not right. People are finding animals and you don't accept them 24/7 anymore, that kind of thing, right? I'm sure a lot of people have gotten those calls before. I tell them the equation is straight out. Hey, look, we don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to do that anymore because it means animals will die. And it means that we're not actually having a progressive conversation and a change about this. We're just doing things the old way. And it means that animals are going to die. And behind closed doors, a lot of those municipal leaders will say, well, it's kind of a tough decision, but your staff has to make it. And one of the things that we always try to talk about, in these calls and beyond is that, yes, the pets are important. Of course they are. They're in our hearts. They're so much to us. But this is about serving the community. It's about making a change. It's about people at least as much as it is about pets. So if we're not doing our job serving the community, then what good is it? And our staff for so long, all of us have felt compassion fatigue at some point, right? Everybody on this call. And for too long, I think shelter workers have been put in a really, really horrible spot where people outside the movement sort of leverage our love and our compassion for these animals to sort of get away with, treating us terribly, not paying us anything, dumping all of their problems on us and expecting us to try to make miracles happen. And so I always fight back. I always think of my team. If I just start folding under pressure, when it comes to things like diversion and, maybe the city putting pressure on us, right? I think, well, who's going to ultimately have to make those tough decisions? It's me and my staff, right? We're going to have to be the ones who put that animal on a euthanasia table when we could have saved it if we had just fought a little bit harder. So I always tell my staff, make them say it, make them say what we have to do, make them know what we have to do. And you'll find a lot of times they won't, they'll blink and then you'll win and you can save animals.
Hey, Luis, before you go forward, and I'm going to just echo, you said leadership, sure. leadership. Can you go back 2 slides for me really quick?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
your leadership is so intoxicating. One more slide for me, please.
Oh, sure.
One more. Can you remind folks, go back to the other life-saving one for me? Can you remind folks when you got to this organization, Luis?
Yes. So I arrived on February 20th of 2020.
Okay. Just wanted to frame that for people. Leadership. And for all these other 290 something leaders on this call, that sometimes, the work gets hard, the work gets difficult, and there's a lot of barriers. Just remember Luis today and what he's been able to do with this organization, with all of the barriers that he has. Back to you, boss. I'm so inspired.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. I mean, well, we've had a lot of really, amazing leaders within the movement that were in it for far longer than I was, that kind of paved the way. I just wish we had more of that in my region, because it would make it so that my team doesn't have to have such a heavy lift. But, this is by no means one person. This is by no means just our team. It's this weekend we had a really, really, I'm tired. I mean, I always look tired. I think that's just my face. I was born looking tired. But especially after animal welfare, I think I've aged a decade since I started in 2018. And on Thursday, the Humane Society of Harlingen has not had to euthanize a single animal for space since probably December of 2019. That was a few months before I got there. And I think they were good for a couple of months after that. It was only medical cases, extreme, parvo, that kind of thing, right? That came in really, really bad. But at least since March of 2020, we haven't had to euthanize a single animal for space. And this last Thursday, we were out. We were out of space. It's not the first time, not even by a long shot. We have been out of space almost constantly since probably mid to late 2020. But we always find a way. We always find a way of getting it out there, And this Thursday, we put out a post that said, hey, look, this is going to change. We have 10 dogs here that we're going to have to put on a euthanasia list for this coming Monday, which is today. We need your help. We can't do it anymore. We need your help. We've tried everything. We've done everything. We need your help right now, right? Being as transparent as possible. What was really nice is that 2 years ago, when we put out posts like that, the comments were nasty, right? Everybody's experienced that abuse. That's on this call probably. But this time, everyone was fighting for us. There was maybe one negative comment, and oh my God, did the community swarm on them. We didn't even have to type a single negative response, right? It's really inspiring. And as of last night, every single one of those at-risk animals was adopted or fostered. It was a close call. It was a really close call, and I think it's the closest we've ever been to having to euthanize for space in over 2.5 years. And I was terrified because when I talk to my staff, I tell them, look, we're the only no-kill shelter in this region, the only one. We're the only one who really uses this language. We're the only one who's really trying to hold out the flame and keep it alive. So yeah, these animals who are in our hearts, these 10 animals, we're fighting for them. But it's so much more than that. Because if we let this flame go out, then there's going to be all these naysayers out there who say, well, see, it's not possible. See, it's not possible. And so my whole, I guess, motivation this week was like, we got to keep that flame alive. We're the only ones. We're the only ones. And if we let it go, it's going to mean so much more than just 10 animals. Tens of thousands are going to continue to die every single year in this region if people get away with the nonsense that, oh, it's not possible. No kill is not possible. So, but we did it. We put a call out to our community and they answered the call. And it was amazing. Oh my God. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. It was really close. We had a few last minute emergency plans in place that I was hoping I wasn't going to have to do in case we ever were going to get there, and hopefully we don't. But the point of all that is it's never over. It doesn't have to be over. And I encourage everybody to remain transparent. There are shelters out there who talk about transparency. There's organizations out there who talk about transparency all the time, but they'll only tell you after the fact that animals have died. We don't believe in that. We're going to sound the alarm before it happens. And so that at least if, the deadline was going to be today at 4 o'clock. So just in a few hours, 4 o'clock Central Time. At least I knew that if the worst should happen, I know that I did everything I possibly could. And that's how I can sleep when I sleep. But moving on, back to sort of engaging that community and all that stuff. Back in the fall, I think it was November or late fall, early winter, it was November, I think, of last year. We created a Facebook page, a Facebook group for the community to start taking action on their own. It's right here on the screen. It's HSH, Reunite and Rehome. Within 6 days of us launching that, we had like 1,500 people on there. So thousands and thousands of animals get rehomed and reunited on that page every single month. Thousands. It's unbelievable. They don't even have to come to the shelter. They don't even come to the shelter for a microchip scan half the time. They just find a way to do it on their own. The community just does it on their own. So, we're talking thousands every month. How many extra shelter, how many extra kennels would we have needed? How much more staff would we have needed if we hadn't have done that, right? It would have been the same overwhelming scenario that we were in for years prior. So yeah, the public uses this constantly. They just do home to home, adoptions constantly. It's great. It's wonderful. And if, we also provide support for this too. So we say, hey, look, you found this cat at the grocery store, try to rehome him here, try to reunite him with the owner. And in the meantime, can we sweeten the deal by offering, free microchip? We'll offer free spay neuter surgery, all that stuff, right? So going back to that, those services that we can provide, and this is how we do it. It's a big part of what we do every single day. It's a big part of diversion. So yeah, it's just about telling your story. I don't know why to this day there are organizations out there that don't believe in, shouting from the rooftops that we're at risk. It's fatigue, right? I get it. I was losing my mind all weekend trying to figure out a way to get these animals out. We've all been there, but it's never the right answer to not talk about it. I don't believe that for a second. I believe that the right answer is always to talk about it. And if the worst had happened today and we hadn't have found our miracle for those dogs, I would have been talking about it. So yeah, I encourage people to just never stop pushing. It's never over. And if anybody has any questions, I can send you our adoption contracts, our foster documents, all that stuff, especially in Spanish too. It's hard to get a lot of that stuff translated sometimes. But yeah, if you need anything, please, this is my contact info. Yeah, let me see if I can not stop sharing my screen. How do we? Oh, there we go.
Incredible, Luis. I'll echo Bobby. Amazing. And I hope you can take some time while you were presenting. I know you couldn't see it, but the chat just blowing up with support and just you're so inspiring on this Monday morning. So thank you. It's incredible. But we do have a little bit of time for some Q&A if you're open to it. Kristen, if you're comfortable unmuting, do you want to ask your question? If not, I can read it for you. I'll read it for you, Kristen. I don't know if you can see that, Luis, but she asked, do you think this type of success can be achieved by a large scale city shelter, or does being a private organization play a key role in your ability to get more buy-in and support from community and others? There's not much marketing or publicity of animals in need at the city level, and it seems to come primarily from the volunteer base. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Sure. I mean, I think that's probably a better question for Ed. From formerly of Dallas Animal Services, I feel like, that sets the bar just off the top of my head of what a city shelter can do. And conversely, there are a lot of private shelters out there, just like mine, that are private nonprofits with the city contracts, and they don't do anything. So you can be proactive in whatever setting, and you can also be lethargic in whatever setting. It just depends on what you're willing to do and how hard you're willing to push. And that's it. That's all there is to it, because there are a lot of places out there who where it doesn't matter. I see shelters that are municipal outperform private ones and vice versa, right? So I think it is absolutely possible in a large setting, even in a municipal shelter. It's just about getting the buy-in from the community, no different than we do it. I suggest getting in touch with your commissioners, knowing who they are, and making sure that that you get out there in the community constantly. Promote the work as much as possible. Tell the good stories as much as possible, so that the constituents for those respective commissioners or mayors can speak up when it comes time for it.
Luis, just for clarification, with your municipal contract that you are responsible just for the housing, not the animal control?
Correct.
So one of the things that we often hear when there are folks that are responsible for the housing, but not the animal control, is they're able to do the culture change internally, but where a lot of the work also needs to happen is in the field, where the relationship first starts with that animal. How has that relationship been with you, having those folks be government employees? And what have you been able to do with culture change without actually having the agency or authority over those officials?
It's been difficult in some ways. It's been really difficult, but I always just say, hey, look, just get them with kindness, right? The officers, your employees' performance often reflects, I think, really reflects your leadership style. And if these ACOs are really unhappy and frustrated with their job, but your employees are smiling all the time, I think you can get them on your side to start doing things for you. And we've found that reality to be true with us. So, something as simple as making sure you have cookies in stock at the front desk to keep them there and, make the shelter someplace people want to be, including the ACOs. Number one, because you want to work with them in a much more productive way, but also because every minute that they spend there chatting with us, they're not out there catching animals that they don't need to catch. But on top of that, I'm actually on the animal control or animal shelter advisory board in our city that they just started up again for the first time in about 6 years. So I'm hoping that we can have a lot more integration. And one of the ideas that was thrown around last meeting, which was just a week ago, was a lot of cross training. Can ACOs spend a week with us? And can we spend a week with ACOs and sort of have that clear, line of communication where they're not out there in the community saying things that are completely untrue about what we do and vice versa, right? We want to be able to understand their obligations and their responsibilities as well. So I think as much integration as possible. And I plan on taking over animal control anyway. That's something for later, but I'll take over animal control probably in a couple of years, I'm hoping. But until you can do that, just be nice. Just be nice. That's a nice rule anyway, and you'll get a lot more done.
Luis, Aaron asks, what are the ordinances that passed that you think have helped?
So one of the things, so several ordinances that really stand out. Number one, there was a pit bull, piece of legislation there that made it so that if a pit bull type dog was at large, didn't even cause any property damage or any injury to anybody, couldn't be released back out into the public unless it was to its owner. We never follow that rule anyway, but at least now it's the law that there's no such thing as that anymore, right? We can just adopt them out. And when I found that out, when I was first reading through the ordinances when I first got there, the staff said, "Oh yeah, we don't listen to that." I said, "Yeah, we're not going to." And they said, "Well, you think we're going to get in trouble?" I said, "Well, yeah, I want to make them say it. I want to make the mayor or the commissioner or the police chief or the health director say that they want to euthanize this adorable pitty, and they won't say it, so we'll win." So that was one. We got rid of that one. The community cat program was a big one. We were already releasing cats. We were already doing it. We were already returning to field thousands of cats, hundreds of cats at least every year. But at least now it provides legal protection for those caregivers so that they're not subject to the pet limits in our city, which I want to eliminate also, but whatever, that's not really enforceable. So it wasn't really prohibiting anything. So that was a big one. It now provides protection for those caregivers, those, that have those colonies out there. They're not subject to licensing requirements either. And it made it so that animal control officers are prohibited from picking up ear-tipped cats. We still get random ear-tipped cat every now and then brought in, and we have to reinforce that. But at least now it's, that's the letter of the law. So really, the short answer is it didn't help because we were already disobeying, but at least now we have the protection of it. So those are big ones. And if anybody wants to see our ordinances, I had a lot of help from Best Friends Animal Society from that, from their legislative team. I'd be more than happy to share what we have to see if you want to hopefully push for that in your own jurisdiction.
Okay, I think we just have a few seconds. Would you say being a lawyer helped you with some of these changes and some of the progress?
I think so. I think it definitely helps get me in the room with some of these individuals in the city. But I think more than anything, it's just attitude. I think more than anything, some of my mentors never spent a day in school. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you come from. I think really it's just the attitude.
That's perfect. Thank you. And with that, we're at the 50-minute mark. So thank you all for being here. And Irene, thanks for posting again the link in the chat. Luis, always a pleasure. You're incredible. And I think we're all leaving this day inspired. So excited for the week. And thank you all. Remember to go to Maddie's Pet Forum, and you can watch this on demand if you want to rewatch it again, and also participate in the chat there. So thanks. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Have a great day.